You're surrounded by marketing. Which of those campaigns triggered your decision to buy? Welcome to my daily podcast where I try to take one issue from the world of publishing and discuss it in about 3 minutes. Unfortunately, today's show is almost more than four times that length. I have a guest today, and the show goes a little bit long, but I hope it's enjoyable. Thanks for watching. Ascend2 is a company that surveys hundreds of marketers on topics and trends and then distributes reports on what they find. A recent report titled the 2023 Marketing Data Impact Report raised the question that's at the heart of today's show. How can a marketer prove the value of what they're doing? So I've asked my old friend Todd Lebo to join me. He's the CEO at Ascend2, so I think he should have some insight on this. So welcome, Todd.
Well, thank you for having me today, Greg. It's a pleasure to see you. We've actually worked together at companies for two different companies. We've worked together, so I'm thankful to be here and look forward to digging into some of this data.
All right, thanks so much. So, Todd, I'll just get right to it. Can marketers prove the value of what they do?
All right, well, I'll give you a perfectly political answer: yes and no. When you had previously asked me this question, I really thought about it, and I think that we'll talk about it more maybe here in some other questions. But when you think about what we do as marketers, we always have to be striving to be able to prove and quantify what we do in the results.
Right.
It's also not an exact science, and we know that there's a lot of things that we do that we know in theory work and are necessary, and you have to kind of move forward with doing those tactics, and then try to figure out different ways to quantify it as you go.
Yeah, I remember back when we were at Kiplinger, or we didn't quite overlap very much at Kiplinger, but I saw these posters that had a picture of somebody and just a big question mark. And I was wondering, what in the world is the point of that? But, the idea was to generate some kind of interest. So I guess, in your report, you say marketers say there's building pressure to prove the overall value of marketing. But with so many more channels, you got emails, and you've got websites, and you've got things on X and things in Facebook and everything else. With all these different channels as paths to a sale, is attribution getting easier or harder?
I would say it's getting easier from the perspective of having technology to help pull things together, so things can be a little bit more automated, and you actually have the ability to pull things together. So we can provide attribution now that we could never do before. So I would say it's getting easier from that perspective, but harder because of what you mentioned. Harder from the aspect of we have more channels, we're more inquisitive on. I remember, you and I, our first company we worked together at, it was primarily direct mail and telemarketing. So we had two channels, and we had very quantified results on everything we did. But when we sent a direct mail piece to somebody, we knew exactly who responded, and we could put dollars to that. We could decide the next time what list we were going to go to, what list we were not going to go to. We could segment our list. There was a lot of things we could do, but I didn't know why Greg opened up that piece and sent it back to me. That was kind of a mystery, and I just moved forward with the data I knew.
Right.
So yeah, it's harder now, but it's more. I think it's also more exciting and more. I would say more impactful for me when I can get a little bit better understanding on what went behind that yes decision that Greg, in this example, that Greg made.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So in your report, you talk about intent data. So explain what intent data is and how does that factor into this question of attribution?
Sure. So intent data is just any data point that we have on somebody's experience in the buying process, right? So if I'm looking for, let's say, a marketing automation platform or a data platform, let's say data platform. I'm looking for a data platform. I've outgrown the one I have. I know I have some need. I might start doing some searches on data platforms, what to buy, what to look for, definitions. Well, all that's information that helps for intent data of, oh, Todd might be interested in buying it. He might have a need.
Right.
And you might then go to my website, look at a white paper. You may do a multiple multiple things. So any action is taken, whether it's data that maybe I have, primary access to, or maybe it's on other sites, can be intent data to help understand where a person's at in that buying decision.
Right. So I would suppose that there's sort of different levels of intent. Like if somebody downloads a white paper, that's more intent than if they just come do a search on your website.
That's right. And of course, data is imperfect. So like for myself, okay, so I'm a research firm. So I might go out and I've had this actually happen before, Greg, where I'll go out and even a client of mine who said, let's do a research study on this. And I go to the website and download some reports so I can get a better idea of that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get an email from them. You might be interested in our platform. And it's like,
Right.
well, no, I'm not actually interested in your platform. I'm interested in doing this research study.
Doing this research, that's right.
Right. So then I have to let them know and they can adjust their database. But, so I use that examples, intent data has benefits, but it has limitations as well.
Right. Sure. So you also talk about scoring by buying groups. And how does that impact the ability to demonstrate the value of marketing?
Yes. Well, first off, I would say when you're looking at buying groups, you're really looking at a complex sale. And that would be, high price points where you have a lot of people involved in the process. So that data platform, for example, that might start, way down at the marketing manager level, where that person is using that platform, realizing limitations. They bump it up to their boss, or maybe it started with the executive team who said, hey, I think we need to do X, Y, Z, but there's multiple people involved. So that buying group is just, instead of following one person, you're trying to follow all the people who are involved in that process, because you can start kind of to formulate a picture of where they're at when you see multiple people. And so for example, I see that with our company where people download some research and, there's a lot of different things that happen. And I realize there's multiple people involved, and that kind of ups the level in my scoring of, now it's not just the marketing managers, it's the CMO who's looking into it. And now I know, like, okay, they're really getting interested now.
I see. All right, good. Now, despite all of our best efforts, there's always some ambiguity in our results. So should marketers include like error bars or margin of error estimates or something like that when they make reports about things?
I think at the very least, you should set up your data to your executive team, whoever's looking at it, to your confidence level. And you might not know like exactly what it is, but I think, it's good to let them know, how this, really, I would say like your history with analyzing this type of data. So for my example here would be, if I've done something the first month or the first 6 months, I'm still not 100% sure, but after doing it for a year, then I could be like, okay, now I've seen this data multiple times. I'm pretty sure it's not a trend, and my confidence level is 95%.
Right. Yeah.
But the first couple months, just like here at Ascend2, we do research all the time, and when we do a research study on email marketing, I can go back and look at previous years and be like, yeah, this, not only is the data set I'm looking at seem highly confident, but also previous data sets help support that.
Right.
Where if it's a new topic like AI, I can have maybe some confidence in that data set, but I don't have anything else to really, go from like, 90% to 95% confidence.
Right. Right. Sure. Okay. Well, that's all very interesting. And I think kind of the bottom line, if I were to wrap it up, is in order for marketers to be able to prove to demonstrate the value of what they're doing, they need access to good data, and they need to have a good understanding of how to segment it out and find different areas within that data and be able to segment out their different campaigns. And so a lot of what you do, a lot of the reports that you do, some of them address that sort of thing, like different marketing techniques or what marketers are doing. So tell us a little bit about what Ascend does and like what our listeners today what listener today would need to come to Ascend2, and what would they want you to do for them?
Yes, good question. Thank you, Greg. At Ascend2, we really started out, and we still do this. We try to create very actionable research, and there's two sides to that. So we're typically working with companies that want to boost their brand, use research as an engagement tool to help quantify the value of what they do, maybe improve their messaging, understand their audience. But typically, most of our research is used for external presentation.
I see. Right.
So they want to use it as a marketing. So we try to make it very actionable, and we're really good at thinking through how this research is going to tell a story. Obviously we don't manipulate the data, but what we do is we really work hard up front on the strategy of, if it's like, for example, AI. We just did a research study on AI and small businesses and how they're using AI. So really working hard through those initial questions to kind of think of the, what's the output going to be? How are we going to help marketers make decisions on the next steps for AI?
Right.
And the benefit there is, if I can get it out in the hands of small businesses like our company or Greg's company, and they get value out of it, that's great, right? They value that research, and they value our partner, and their partner gets exposure. So it's really an engagement tool, and we work in marketing topics, but we work with a lot of non-marketing topics as well. And it's, like I said, it's primarily for external engagement. Right.
So your website is ascend2.com, and is it okay if I drop your email address in the notes here?
Oh, yeah, please do. And just one final thought, Greg, as I was looking at this one research study that we talked about today, it really had a lot of implications around how companies, intent data and how companies are using data. And maybe we have to have a follow-up here sometime, but I think there's so many things we could talk about on what some of the struggles companies are having with their data, and kind of how to bring it all together on a platform so they can do like the segmentation, personalization, analysis. And I know you do that very well. So I would encourage people too to just look at some of the things that you do and how you can help set them up with getting the most out of their data.
All right. Well, thanks so much for that. Yeah, if you have questions about customer data, give me a call. And Todd, thanks again so much for being on the show today, and look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Greg.